Status. Anyone, give me a status. Lieutenant Commander Vance's voice was a raw tear in the fabric of chaos. He slammed a fist against his useless tactical headset. The silence in his ear, a mocking scream, louder than the gunfire, echoing through the skeletal remains of the parking garage. His team, the best trained operators in the world, were scattered, blind, and being systematically hunted. He had lost control, miles away, yet with a view that saw everything. Staff Sergeant Maya, Echo, Torres lay perfectly still. Amidst the storm of concrete dust and muzzle flashes, her breathing was a slow, measured tide. Her hazel eyes, narrowed behind the scope of her M110 rifle, were the only calm center in a universe of panic. Commander Vance believed war was a symphony of information, a constant flow of data and commands. He was about to learn that the most decisive notes are often born in absolute silence. Maya's wilderness was not the sprawling forests of Alaska, but the steel and glass canyons of Chicago. Her father wasn't a hunter of elk, but a structural engineer and a legendary SWAT marksman. He taught her a different kind of tracking. He taught her the language of the city. While other kids learn nursery rhymes, Maya learned how a .308 round sounds when it strikes tempered glass versus reinforced concrete, how the echo from a gunshot could map an entire unseen room. Listen, Maya, he'd say, tapping a steel I-beam in a construction site. Everything talks. Steel sings. Concrete groans. Glass shrieks. A real shooter doesn't just see the target. She hears the world around it. She learned to find stillness in the city's roar, a focused silence that allowed her to process the cacophony of urban life into pure, usable data. This was the skill she brought to the military. Her silence wasn't a weakness or a social failing. It was her process. It was how she achieved the impossible. During sniper school, this was a source of constant friction. In one exercise, the target was positioned behind a concrete pillar, a so-called impossible shot. While other candidates tried to find a new angle, Maya remained in her position. She took a single shot, not at the target, but at a steel girder high above it. The bullet ricocheted at a perfect, calculated angle, striking the target from above. Her instructors were stunned. A 1 in a million fluke, Torres, one of them had declared, shaking his head. In real combat, we rely on doctrine, not miracles. They saw a lucky shot. They failed to see the years of listening to the city, of understanding the symphony of angles and materials. They heard a gunshot, but Maya had heard the solution. And just like then, her new commander, Vance, was about to make the same mistake. He saw her silence and assumed it was an absence of thought, never realizing it was the very presence of it. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Vance, call sign Radio, was a man forged in the crucible of modern warfare. He was charismatic, decisive, and utterly devoted to the gospel of technology. In the briefing room, he commanded a holographic tactical map with the grace of a conductor, his voice a constant, reassuring presence in his team's ears. Information is victory, he preached, his finger tracing glowing blue lines of attack. A silent operator is a blind operator. I need to hear you to keep you alive. Every 30 seconds, I want a verbal check-in. No exceptions. For Vance, silence was the void where plans went to die. The friction between Vance's philosophy and Maya's nature was immediate and palpable. It came to a head during a raid on a weapons cache in a dense urban slum. While scanning the approach, Maya noticed something almost invisible, a slight discoloration on a patch of asphalt, a faint shimmer of disturbed air. It was a pressure plate IED, poorly concealed. Her report over the comms was typically concise. Echo to radio. Potential threat. Sector 4. Pavement. Vance, expecting a detailed analysis, was irritated by her brevity. Elaborate. Echo. What kind of threat? Give me something to work with. Disturbance. Looks wrong, she replied, her focus entirely on the threat, not on the conversation. Frustrated, Vance bypassed her, ordering another team member with a drone to confirm. The drone confirmed the IED moments before the point man would have stepped on it. They succeeded, but in the after-action review, Vance made his displeasure public. "Torres," he said, his voice echoing in the tense debriefing room. "The battlefield is not a library. Your instincts were right, but your communication was a failure. We need clear, loud, and immediate warnings, not cryptic whispers. You need to learn to be part of the choir." The incident branded her. She was the quiet one, the lone wolf, the operator who couldn't be fully trusted in the heat of the moment because she wouldn't or couldn't talk. Only one man saw it differently. Master Sergeant Sarge Miller, a grizzled veteran on his last tour, had been watching Maya. He saw how she used a subtle hand signal to warn him of a loose roof tile moments before it fell, how a slight nod from her had confirmed a building was clear faster than any verbal report could. He cornered a few of the younger operators later. "You all listen to the commander's radio," he grumbled, cleaning his rifle. "But you need to learn to watch. Words can lie. The way that girl moves, the way she sees, that doesn't. She's got more going on in that silence than most of us have in a full-throated scream." His words planted a seed of doubt in their certainty, a quiet counter-melody to Vance's loud command. The new mission was a nightmare scenario, handpicked from a strategist's book of worst-case futures. Their target, a captured CIA analyst held in the server core of a decommissioned data fortress in the heart of a hostile city. The building, a concrete behemoth named the Cube, was a known hub for electronic warfare specialists. Intelligence warned of sophisticated signal jamming, EMP capabilities, and a complex internal layout designed to confuse intruders. It was a mission where communication would be the first casualty. This reality hung heavy in the air during the final tactical briefing. It was here that Maya chose to speak. Standing before the holographic map, she cleared her throat, the sound drawing surprised looks. "Sir," she began, her voice steady but quiet, "I've prepared a contingency, an acoustic communications protocol, in the event of total signal loss." She pointed to different materials on the building's schematic. "If comms go dark, I can use distinct impact sounds as commands. A single, sharp report on a steel support beam means threat spotted, take immediate cover. 2 quick, dull thuds on a concrete wall means rally on me, move to my position. And a single, high-frequency shatter of glass means threat neutralized, clear to advance." She had mapped the entire building's acoustic properties, turning it into a potential instrument she could play. A tense silence filled the room. The team looked from Maya to Vance, waiting. Vance stared at her, a slow, incredulous smile spreading across his face. He chuckled, a sound devoid of humor. "Sergeant," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "This is a Tier 1 operation, not a high school science fair." He gestured dismissively at the map. "We are equipped with multi-million-dollar, frequency-hopping, encrypted communication suites. They will not fail. We're not going to rely on you playing a drum solo in the middle of a firefight." This was the first turning point. The rejection was absolute and public. He didn't just dismiss her idea. He mocked her expertise. "You will stick to the protocol, Torres. Your job is to shoot the enemy, not to conduct a symphony. Radio silence is not, and will never be, an option." The other operators shifted uncomfortably, their eyes avoiding Maya's. She simply gave a single, professional nod, her face an unreadable mask. But inside, she knew, Vance wasn't just planning a mission. He was walking them all into a trap of his own making, a prison of rigid doctrine for which only she might have the key. The infiltration was textbook perfect. Fast roping onto the roof of the Cube under the cloak of a moonless night, Vance's team moved with the fluid lethality of ghosts. "Radio check." Vance's voice was a crisp whisper in their ears. One by one, they sounded off. "Solid copy," Maya reported, her voice the last in the sequence as she settled into her overwatch position, a high nest of girders and broken glass that gave her a commanding view of the building's primary floors. They moved inside, the air growing thick with the smell of ozone and decay. The server rooms were a maze of black monoliths and tangled nests of fiber optic cables, a perfect environment for an ambush. 30 seconds to target, Vance reported, his team stacking up on the door to the central server core. And then, the world ended. It wasn't a bang, but a hum, a deep, gut-wrenching vibration that seemed to warp the air itself. A wave of blue energy, visible for a microsecond, pulsed through the facility. Every electronic device died instantly. The lights, their night vision goggles, the red dots on their rifles, and most critically, their radios, all went dead. They were plunged into absolute, suffocating darkness and a silence more profound than any of them had ever known. The silence lasted for 3 heartbeats. Then the ambush was sprung. Muzzle flashes erupted from the darkness, a storm of automatic fire from all directions. The team, caught in the open corridor, was instantly pinned down. Green tracers sliced through the air, revealing the terrifying efficiency of the trap. They were being herded, cut off, and destroyed. The opening scene was now reality. Vance, his face illuminated by the strobing gunfire, screamed uselessly into his dead headset. He was a conductor without an orchestra, a voice without a medium. His entire system of command had been amputated. Panic, cold and sharp, began to creep into his heart. His team was dying, and he was helpless. From her perch, Maya saw it all. Her optics were non-electronic, her skills analog. She saw the enemy fire teams maneuvering, their movements a dance of death designed to envelop and annihilate Vance's men. She heard his orders in her head: stick to the protocol. Radio silence is not an option. But there was no protocol for this. The protocol was dead. This was the key turning point. She could follow orders and watch her team die, or she could trust the lifetime of listening to the city song. She took a deep, centering breath, the scent of cordite sharp in her nostrils. Her crosshairs settled not on an enemy fighter, but on a massive, exposed I-beam that ran across the ceiling of the floor below. She exhaled. Clang. The sound was shockingly clear, a single, pure, metallic note that cut through the cacophony of the firefight. It wasn't a sound of violence. It was a sound of command. It was the first note of her silent symphony. It was her voice, finally speaking in the only language the battlefield would allow. On the floor below, the resonant clang echoed like a church bell in hell. Vance and his men flinched, confused. What was that? A stray round? Sarge Miller knew better. His head snapped up. He remembered the briefing, the quiet girl's ridiculous plan. He screamed over the gunfire, his voice raw with sudden, desperate hope. That's Echo. Cover. It's the signal. Take cover now. He tackled Vance, pulling him behind a server rack just as a burst of machine gun fire tore through the space where they had been standing. The battlefield had a new commander. Maya began to conduct. She saw a flanking team moving to Vance's left. Her rifle swung. Thud! Thud! 2 quick, heavy impacts into the concrete wall to the team's right. Sarge didn't hesitate. Move right. Rally on the wall, he yelled, translating her silent order. The team scrambled, consolidating their position and avoiding the flanking maneuver by seconds. The enemy was bewildered. The trapped soldiers were moving with coordinated precision, but their radios were silent. How? They pushed forward, tried to regain the initiative. As 2 of Vance's men prepared to cross a dangerously open intersection, a bullet from above struck a pane of glass just in front of them. Crack, shatter. The sound was sharp, a clear warning. Halt! Sarge bellowed. Threat ahead. The fight transformed into a surreal dialogue. Maya's rifle spoke in a language of steel, concrete, and glass. She was not just a sniper. She was the team's eyes, their strategist, their commander. Each shot was a word. Each impact a sentence, composing a symphony of survival that the enemy could not comprehend. Vance watched, his mind reeling. He was a spectator to his own rescue. His multi-million-dollar gear was useless junk, his doctrine a forgotten relic. His team was alive because of the one person, the one method he had so arrogantly dismissed. He watched as Maya used a ricochet shot, the same fluke from her training file, to eliminate an enemy machine gunner hidden behind total cover. It wasn't a miracle. It was expertise. With the primary threats eliminated, Maya located the source of the chaos, the EMP generator, humming menacingly in a fortified alcove. It was shielded with only a small ventilation port exposed. A 1 in a million shot. She took it. The bullet flew true, and the generator exploded in a shower of sparks. The emergency lights flickered on. The static in their headsets resolved into a low hum. And then, a voice, calm and clear, cut through the silence. "Radio, this is Echo," Maya said. "Threats neutralized. You're clear." In a formal debriefing, before generals and intelligence analysts, Lieutenant Commander Vance stood up. The room fell silent. He didn't look at the screens displaying the mission data. He looked directly at Maya. "My strategy failed," Vance stated, his voice clear and steady. "My equipment failed. My command failed. My team is alive for one reason: Staff Sergeant Torres and a protocol I ridiculed." He turned to the commanding general. "Sir, I was wrong. I was deafened by my own noise. I request that the acoustic protocol be adopted as standard contingency training for all Tier 1 assets. And I request that Sergeant Torres be the one to teach it." The final scene is not in a briefing room, but in a training facility. Maya stands before a new group of elite snipers. She doesn't speak. She simply raises her rifle and fires a sequence of shots at targets of steel, concrete, and glass. She is teaching them to listen. Have you ever been in a situation where the loudest voice in the room was the wrong one? Maya's story reminds us that in a world saturated with noise, we often mistake silence for absence. But sometimes, the most powerful communication, the most effective leadership, isn't about speaking at all. It's about creating a system so profound that your actions become the only orders that matter. If you believe true expertise is proven, not proclaimed, type respect in the comments. Because somewhere out there is a quiet professional whose voice is about to change the world, and they deserve to be heard. Thanks for watching.